It's been almost 15 years, going on 14 years this year, since I've been arrested, since I was arrested in November 2005 for possession of a controlled substance after spending about 10 months addicted to crystal meth and just partying 24/7, using and abusing and disrespecting valuable medicines as well as other substances that I think offer no value. And I've learned a lot in those last 14 years, as one can hope. And it's taken me a long time to realize something about my addiction that really just the revelation only has come about just in the last couple of years, which is really profound. And I mean, I find it cool to be like, wow, I'm still learning such amazing things. Specifically, learning related to how addiction affected me and how the true struggle, the true nature of my struggle goes much deeper than drug addiction. I mean, this is something I realized long ago when I first got arrested and I was spending time locked up. And for those who are not aware, who haven't heard me tell this story, I did 18 months in Texas State prisons between 2005 and 2008. 11 months, then got out for 5 months, then did 3 more months, then got out for a year, and then did 4 more months. And so I ended up about 18 months in there. And I learned a lot about myself. This is where I discovered meditation. This is really the beginning of my journey. Those of you who only know me as an activist or a journalist or a YouTuber or what have you might not realize that for me, my journey actually began when I got arrested and went to prison and started to do introspection and reflection and, practice mindfulness and discovered Zen Buddhism and then Zazen and meditation of various forms, as well as my experiences with psychedelics, specifically LSD, that showed me a lot about myself. And as soon as I got arrested and started to do this introspection, and I reflected on the fact that my family on both sides has at least 3 generations of men going back that have been in prison for drug addiction, for alcohol abuse, for a number of what we would term self-destructive, antisocial behaviors. Regardless of whether they were illegal or not, at the end of the day, I can say that the use of drugs in my family was coming from a very hurt place. It wasn't like somebody just joyfully celebrating that they want to party and use various substances to, enjoy themselves. It was more about escape. And so when I got out of prison the first time after spending 11 months and really thinking like, I got this, I started meditating. I know more about myself. I'm eating right. I've gained weight after losing weight from drugs. I'm like jogging every day. I'm the healthiest I've ever been. And I'm doing great. I got this figured out. And then I came back out into the world, the busy world, the free world as they call it when you're locked up. And nearly immediately, some of the old friends that I'd known before, and even friends that I met while I was locked up, we started scheming and plotting, and people who I met while I was locked up, they knew that I knew how to get acid. They knew that I could still get crystal meth. And it was only a matter of time before I started selling again. I really had no interest in using crystal again. I had actually got myself sober prior to even getting locked up. I got arrested for actually selling, for dealing, for possession. And I ran into some old friends who wanted to offer me drugs and said, I'll front you this amount of cannabis. I'll give you 1 pound. I'll give you 2 pounds. I'll give you 4 pounds. And it's kind of hard for me, at least at that time, to turn down that much cannabis. And especially if somebody's just offering it to me on the front, I can pay them back later to help me make money. And I was definitely broke getting out of being locked up and gone for a year, as well as having the stigma of being locked up and having to explain that to potential employers. So I fell back into that same trap and I started to sell again and, just surround myself by the same people or very similar people. And it was only a matter of time before I was using again, not using crystal meth or any hard drugs anymore, but I was smoking cannabis again, which I don't think is a problem and I don't think should be illegal. But the fact of the matter is, at that point in time, the state had me by the balls and I was on probation. And you basically have to jump when they say jump. You have to get a job when they say get a job. You have to do everything they say. And if they don't like what you're doing or how you talk or how you think, they can send you back to prison or violate your probation or extend it and do all number of things to you, all manner of things to you. So the fact of the matter was I was violating the conditions of this probation agreement that I was forced into. And I found myself locked up again, going back. I found myself with my mother very, very angry at me and saying, you know what, don't come back this time. I gave you a chance. You're turning into your father. I don't want to see you again. I found myself with my girlfriend at the time basically saying, I just waited for you for a whole year and now you're already going back. Like, peace out. I'm not waiting for you again. So I had to go turn myself in downtown to jail with really nobody at my side, feeling very isolated and just broken. But it was what I needed. And it was in those moments as I went back and I thought, well, what is going on? How did I just spent almost a year locked up and I thought I figured this out. How did I end up back here so quickly? Only 5 months later and I'm already here. And again, I reflected and I could see how once I got out, I started to go back to some of the same actions, the same people. They talk about changing your people, places, and things. But at the end of the day, what was going on was I realized that, well, I'm not necessarily addicted to drugs anymore. I feel like I'm addicted to selling drugs. And that's kind of where I rested my thoughts for a couple of years. And as time has progressed, now, as I said, it's 14 years later, over that time I've realized, well, it wasn't really that I was addicted to selling drugs either. What I enjoyed was the connection. When I had acid, when I had mushrooms or various psychedelics, and I wanted to share these as medicines, people would come to me. They would come see me. I was selling lots and lots of acid often. I was really letting the spirit of that medicine guide me to wherever it took me. I had my backpack, I had money, and I had, my substances, my medicines. And people would say, hey, come to this party. We have a bunch of people that want to buy this. And I'd end up there and I'd just float wherever the medicine took me. And it took me on a lot of adventures. And as I said, I also abused it quite a bit, but I gained a respect for it. And so I thought that people wanted to be around me. Ultimately, I realized, as I think any drug dealer or person who is supplying the party realizes, oh, it's not me they really give a shit about. It's the thing I possess, the substance I possess, the medicine I'm sharing. Some people understood and they saw me as, maybe their teacher or their guide, and I really enjoyed playing that role. For the most part, I clearly remember writing in one of my notebooks along this period of time, let's say between 2000, somewhere in the mid to late 2000s, going into about 2012. I stopped selling acid in 2012. I stopped dealing drugs in 2012 once I got into activism. And in that time period, I remember writing down in my notebook, the one who supplies the party always ends up alone. And then I started to realize as I got into activism and I started to build the Houston Freethinkers community and connect with people, it's like, oh, this is what I was looking for. It wasn't that I was addicted to selling drugs or even doing drugs necessarily, although my body and mind did get addicted at one point. It was that I was seeking a true connection. I was seeking something deeper and something that I'd been lacking most of my life because of a lack of a relationship with my birth father and with various people in my life, and not being able to share my emotions and being a big ball of emotions as I am and not feeling like I had a place to express them. And so when I was around certain people using drugs, I had this illusion that, oh, we're all connected and we're real friends. And of course, as you often do realize with heavy drug use, you realize, okay, well, they're not really my friends either. They're just here to get their fix and to use drugs because I have an apartment to do drugs in. And then later I realized, oh, okay, so I don't really necessarily have an addiction to selling drugs either, although I did like the business aspect of it. I've always been an entrepreneur way before I understood the importance of entrepreneurship and its path to freedom. It was that when I had these medicines, people would spend time with me and we would connect. But then again, like I said, I'd always end up alone at night because people don't want to hang out with their drug dealer. They just want to get whatever they got from you and then go about their night. And so I started to realize, okay, I was seeking a deeper connection. But I also realized, and this is the whole point of this video, I've realized just in the last couple months that my struggles with drug addiction, and I'm focusing on drug addiction because it's a big part of my life, but in general, let's say self-destructive antisocial behaviors, which I have also exhibited quite a bit in my life, having cheated on most of the women I've dated throughout my life from a young age, and now I'm 34 years old. I've realized in the last couple months that my struggle is actually with impulse control. And you cannot imagine the joy I felt with that understanding when that realization came to me, like, holy crap, I've been struggling with battling impulses. Because the reality is this, my friends, that even after drugs have left my life, and I have no desire to do crystal meth or really any hard drugs. Maybe I'm out sometime partying at a special occasion with people and we do something. I have access to psychedelics when I want to trip like that. But for the most part, I live my life fairly sober. I don't consider myself a sober person, but I live fairly sober, right? So I'm not struggling with drugs anymore. But as many drug addicts will have realized, and people who struggle in different ways, you realize, well, maybe you start struggling with, you're drinking coffee all the time, or you're smoking cigarettes all the time. You just trade addictions, as some people call it, or it's cross addiction where it switches to something else. Or it just trades to unhealthy, destructive behavior. I like to tell people that I'm a recovering cookie monster because I love sweets, and that's a problem I've had. And so I realize in some of these moments, I'll be thinking like, I would really like some of those vegan Oreos. Those just sound so good. And in my other part of my mind, I'm like, no, dude, you're going to feel like shit afterwards. You don't need to do that. Like, let's eat that salad, or let's go, let's just do something else, or let's just stay put. And then I realize, well, I got a couple of bucks, and it starts feeling like I need to get rid of this money, this few dollars. I also have a problem with random odd numbers. So if I have like $13, I feel like I need to spend 3 of those dollars to make it an even 10. It's weird. But my point is, I'll have these impulses coming in and start thinking like, oh, maybe I want to go get those cookies or that snack, and I'm just giving this an example. In the past, it could be like, maybe I want to go try to pick up this chick, or hey, I just had a flirtatious conversation, and where could that lead? Even if I'm with another partner already, I've realized though in the past couple months is, holy shit, I've been struggling with impulse control. And I think impulse control is something that many of us struggle with. Maybe yours isn't related to drugs or to cheating. Maybe yours is related to lying, or to just, again, eating unhealthy, or just whatever it may be. My point is here, I think that the struggle, the battle over impulse control is one of maturity. It comes with emotional maturity, which if you've heard me speak before, I talk about how I often feel like I'm 9 years old, maybe 10 years old, 12 years old, because not only was I buried under depression and suicide attempts and just that sadness for the first 20, 21 years of my life, then I got stuck on drugs, back and forth with drugs, prison, parole for 2 or 3, 4 years. And then by the time I got out of all that, when I was 25, it felt like I finally was seeing the world with fresh eyes. And then around 26, I started, getting into activism and just been doing this now for almost a decade. But I have struggled with impulse control in so many different ways. So maybe I'm not using the drugs anymore, and I'm not, lying to people all the time, or I'm not cheating, but I still do struggle with impulses. And I'm not going to sit here and lie and say as if I haven't struggled with being faithful to my partners because of impulse control. Especially when it's a decision. Well, for example, let me say, like, again, let me go back to the cookie example. It's like, okay, I want these cookies. There's something in my brain that's itching and saying, like, just go get those cookies or just eat them. It'll sound good. It'll feel good. It's like there's a dopamine rush. Like, I want to get that satisfaction of the sugar and all that kind of stuff. Or it's like, well, maybe taking this drug will make me feel better. Like, yeah, that's a cool escape. Let's do that. I'm itching to do that. And then it's in my mind until I go ahead and actually do it. And then all of a sudden there's some release, like, oh, okay, got those cookies, or ate that unhealthy meal, or took that drug, or flirted with that woman. All these different examples of what for me have been struggling with getting my impulses under control and being able to manage them in a emotionally mature fashion. And what I see is basically just becoming a man. And if you're a woman or whatever you identify as, becoming a mature adult, let's say that, right? Because at some point we have to leave the childish aspects of ourselves behind, at least the unhealthy ones, right? I often talk about the inner child, and I've said before that the inner child is your connection to your creativity, because when you're growing up as a child, before the world tells you that, no, you can't live that way, no, you can't do that, no, that's impossible, no, 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 time to grow up and join the rest of us in our misery, get a job, get married, do all these things you're expected. Before that point, in your heart, you just know. There's not even like you have to think about it. You just know you can do anything. You can create anything. You can dream anything. As children, we have this strong power of manifestation because of our imagination, which is a part of the visualizing process. And part of the manifestation process is the ability to be able to imagine and visualize and see and taste and smell what you want. So your inner child is your connection to that creativity, that creative source, and that's something you want to hold on to. And your inner child is also your connection to your trauma, the trauma and the different things that we pick up as children on our path on the way to something better. So perhaps you find yourself, you might remember that, well, when I was a kid, if I was upset, I would just pout and I would sit there and just, I'm going to pout until I get my way. Or maybe your way was just running away and, slamming the door or not talking or screaming. And these are things that you usually pick up from your environment and from the lessons and the examples that you're provided. Some of us, we grow out of those things. We mature. We figure out how to get through those if we're given the proper tools and if we find the proper teachers. Oftentimes, though, you might find yourself as an adult acting in those same ways. You don't get your way, so you start pouting. Maybe you don't do it in the same way as you did when you were a little kid, where you just fall on your ass and just sit there with your arms crossed like, I'm not going to do anything. But you might be pouting in a different way. Or you still run away from conversations. You're exhibiting that childlike behavior. And when you notice that, that's an opportunity to focus on that and to heal. So your inner child is really powerful. It can be your gateway to healing as well as your gateway to creativity. However, if you continue to exhibit those immature behaviors from your childhood and you do not focus on the healing and you do not focus on recovering from the trauma, then you will continue to have them throughout your life. And so here I am as a 34-year-old man, or as a 10-year-old kid, however you want to think about it, who is still struggling with something that I've struggled with since I was 14 years old. And now in my early mid-30s, which just still blows my mind, I'm having to accept, like, okay, this is your reality. You can either keep living this reality, keep struggling with impulse control, and keep seeing the results of your self-destructive behavior, your antisocial behavior, and seeing that the way that your impulses, your lies, your whatever form the impulses come from, it's either going to end up with me feeling bad because I ate those cookies, or because I acted in some way, or because I lied, or I cheated, or I took drugs that I didn't need to, and things spiral out from there. Or I can say, I own myself. I am powerful. I am beautiful. I am free. I am in control of my life and my path. I believe fully that I can do anything I set my mind to. Just repeat those things. Stop the video, pause it, rewind it a little bit, and repeat that with me. I own myself. I am powerful. I am beautiful. I am free. I am in control. And if you think you're not in control, if you've disempowered yourself and you've given away your power, my friends, it's time to reclaim that. Maybe you struggle with impulse control in some other ways, and I hope that you're able to relate to this video if you do. I can't tell you the amount of drug addicts and alcoholics I've met on the road as I've been speaking more and more, and people who say, thank you for sharing your story of addiction, because I'm still struggling. I'm still in this place. And maybe they look at me and they get a little bit of hope. And that's cool. I mean, I don't think I want to be worshipped in any way or anything like that. But if my story and my struggles and the things I'm still struggling with can help anybody, then hell yeah, I want to share it. Hell yeah, I want to connect with you guys and grow together, because we all have our struggles. We are all working on this individually. So my challenge to you and to myself, because I want you to remember, my friends, that when I speak to you guys, this is therapy for me. This is just a way for me to speak to the mirror, to reflect these messages back to myself. And if they help other people in the world, and if people watch the videos or listen, then that's even better. But ultimately, this is for me. I know that many of you come to my channel seeking news, seeking journalism, and I love to do that. But ultimately, let me let you in on a secret. The only reason I do those videos is to get you to question the nature of reality, to question the nature of government, and hopefully eventually question yourself and your very being, so that you find yourself to these type of videos and you start thinking on a deeper level about what are the real challenges that you face. Because Trump is not the challenge that we face. The New World Order is not the challenge that we face. Henry Kissinger, even 5G and artificial intelligence and the social credit scores and all the crap that scares the hell out of me, they are not the ultimate struggle that we face. They are a part of it. They are a part of the physical manifestation. And the whole idea of the conscious resistance is the awareness, the realization that the struggle for a more free and ethical world does not come from only confronting the physical institutions of power, but also comes from working on our internal tyrant, our doubts, our fears, and our insecurities. And for me, part of that is working on impulse control, so that I don't keep fucking my life up and hurting other people and repeating the same mistakes that I've been making since I was a little kid. So please, take a moment to reflect on these issues and these ideas. Don't be so focused on just what's going on in the physical 3D realm. It affects you. Don't ignore it. This is why there's a balance between both. But don't ignore yourself either. Don't allow yourself to be sucked into such an emotional whirlwind, which is what the system wants you to be at a loss for words and just overcome with all of this emotional muck that you feel like you're powerless and you feel hopeless, and you get to that defeatist mentality that some of you out there have, that everything's screwed, there's nothing we can do. Why are you wasting your time talking about this spiritual, hippie, emotional stuff when we got bad guys coming for us? We need to stock up guns and get prepared to shoot them out for the rapture of the Armageddon. Hey, it may come to that, but at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I'm as empowered as an individual as possible, that when it's time for me to meet the end of my life, in whichever way that may come, that I can stop and I can pray to my Creator and say, thank you for every lesson you've given me, because I've taken them in, I've embodied them, I've learned through them, and hopefully I'm returning back to the source a better, stronger, more wise being. And at the end of the day, I think that's all what we can hope for. So please, my friends, think about these words. I hope they resonate with you. I hope they are helpful to you. And until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free, my friends. Peace.